Uh, the first point I want to make is perhaps an obvious one. When we start reading Exodus, we're in the middle of a story. We start here. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. That is not a new beginning of something. That's a continuation. We need so much information to process and understand this relatively simple sentence. Who's Israel? Who's Jacob? Are you telling me that they're the same person? He has sons. How many sons does he have? Why were they coming to Egypt? Where were they coming from? Why should we care about them? All of that backstory, of course, is found in Genesis. But it's not just that Exodus continues the plot of Genesis. In the Hebrew of this verse, though I don't think you will find it in any major English translation, the first word of this verse isn't these. The first word is and these. And these are the names, etc. Right? That and in the Hebrew signals to us that we're in the middle of something. That's not how a brand new book will start. So where are we then in the broader story? Well, at the end of Genesis, Jacob and his descendants are all in Egypt. Jacob has died, and Joseph too, after having served Pharaoh and all of Egypt so well. Joseph has just made his brothers swear to bring his bones back when they leave Egypt. He's on his deathbed, and in fact does die at the end of Genesis. And that's the setup for that, the lead into where we are. The plot of Exodus from there, as we enter our book proper, is pretty well known. I'm gonna run it down briefly. A new Pharaoh arises who oppresses Israel. Moses is born and tossed into a basket. He grows up, kills an Egyptian, and runs away to Midian, where he gets married, and is called by God to free Israel. And then he returns. There's some plagues. The Israelites leave. They cross a body of water in miraculous fashion. They sing a song. Then they enter the wilderness, where they struggle a little bit with sustenance, but find themselves at a mountain where God shows up and gives them some laws and some building instructions, upon which the Israelites decide to make a golden calf, leading to some unpleasantness. But then it's all okay again, and they actually build the tabernacle that they were instructed to build. That is God's new house, and God takes up residence in it. There you go. Exodus in very brief. Now, not to jump ahead or anything, but the same situation we find at the beginning of Exodus, in terms of continuity with Genesis, we find at the beginning of the next book, Leviticus. Just as Exodus is the continuation both narratively and grammatically of Genesis, so too Leviticus is the continuation narratively and grammatically of Exodus. Leviticus begins, he called to Moses. Again, who's he? If you hadn't read anything before this, who's Moses? And again, we have a grammatical indication in Hebrew that we're mid-story, right? Actually, even maybe mid-sentence, since the subject of this opening of Leviticus isn't actually named. My point in talking about the Genesis to Exodus transition and the Exodus to Leviticus transition is that Exodus as a book doesn't, and in fact can't, stand alone. It's the middle of a thing. And so to begin our sessions on the book of Exodus, I'm going to suggest that there is no book of Exodus. It is an artificial distinction. What we're reading in Exodus isn't its own book. It's just the second volume of a larger work. That work is the Pentateuch, or the Torah, right? That's the actual literary work that we have before us. And the individual books, as we call them, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, those books are and always were entirely continuous with one another. They're separated into volumes with names only because the whole work, the whole Pentateuch, was too large to fit on a single scroll in antiquity. So, they divided it at reasonable spots, no doubt, and like thoughtfully, but they divided it only as a matter of necessity. Conceptually, from Genesis through Deuteronomy is a single work. So at no point will I be talking about sort of the message of the book of Exodus, as it were, or things like that. Everything we say with regard to Exodus has to be viewed through this sort of broader lens of it being really just the second fifth of the work that we call the Pentateuch. So that's what we're doing here. We're talking about what's going on here in this second volume of the Pentateuch, which is still pretty interesting.